Hello guys, so in this video I'm going to talk about closures and lexical environment in JavaScript. Now please pay attention to this video. This is one of the most important concept in JavaScript. Okay, I'm trying my level best to make you understand this, so please pay attention. Okay, now let me create a first QK file here. So Control Shift P, and here I'm going to say new JavaScript file. Okay, fine. Now let's take a problem statement here. Okay, first let's take a problem statement, then probably we'll understand why we need this, what is the use of closure. Okay, let's say that we have a newborn baby. Okay, so the age starts with 0 months, so probably we can say 0, right? Now the age is going to increment each and every year, right? So first time it's like 1, and second time it's going to be 2, and so on, like this going to keeps on continuous, right? Now let's take that problem statement into a programmatical way. Okay, so here I'm going to create a function which is going to return the age of the baby. Okay, so let's say that I'm going to create a function here, get age, and here let's declare the age of the newborn baby, right? So I'm going to say let age equal to 0. So probably you can say like it's 0 month, right? So newborn baby. Okay, so that is what the statement here. Okay, now so whenever I call this get age, it should increment value as 1. Okay, so I'm going to return the value here, so return plus plus age. Okay, so I'm going to just return the value. So that means whenever I call this age function here, it is going to return me the incremented value, right? So let me log that. So log, and here I'm going to say get age. Okay, so get age. Fine. So as expected, we got the value as 1, right? Now consider the real-time scenario. Okay, so the newborn baby has 0 month, whereas the first birthday it is age 1, right? So second birthday, that means we have to call the method again or function again. So in this case it should be 2, right? That is what real time is. Age does not keep on constant, it keeps on grows, right? So here when I call this get age function, but still I'm getting the output as 1, right? Why? Because whenever I call this invoke, okay, so whenever I invoke this function, here we have let age equal to 0, right? So the very first line, it is going to make the variable as 0, then probably we are incrementing, and then we are returning this, right? So whenever we call the function, it is going to be like 0, and then it is going to increment. So that is the reason here when I call this first time, it is 0, and then we got the value, incremented value, right? Now again if I call this, so obviously it is going to take this value, right? So again it's going to initialize at 0 and then increment and then return. Okay, now for this you might give me a solution that instead of declaring this let age equal to 0 inside the function, so we can change the scope, right? We can make it in the file level, or in terms of JavaScript I can say we can make this as global, right? So here if I bring this line on top of this method, that is if I declare this age as a global level, then my problem is solved, right? So age is here 1 and age is 2 here, that's fine. But now let's say that someone is going to manipulate the value. Okay, for example here I can say like minus age here. Okay, so when I do this age is again from 1, then 2, then again it's minusing, so again we are getting the value as 1, right? So subtraction is happening and the value is again becoming the same age. But this is not the real-time scenario, right? Your age doesn't go like ups, downs, again up, it goes like up, then down, and again up. That is not going to happen, right? It keeps on growing. We all become aged people, right? So that is how natures work, right? But in programmatically, when we are trying to solve this approach, this is going to change the value, right? So obviously we are able to manipulate the value of age. So this is going to be problem. But when I declare this within the get age function, right, now I cannot manipulate the age value here, because the scope of this age is within this environment. I can say this within this curly braces, right? So obviously we cannot call this age outside of the function, so obviously we cannot do the manipulation. So this is not going to work here. So I'm going to comment this now. Okay, but again the same problem. So whenever we are going to call this get age, it is not going to increment. Okay, so I hope you are getting the problem statement clearly. Now let's see how to solve this using JavaScript with the help of closures and lexical environment. Okay, fine. Now consider that instead of returning age, I am going to declare a function inside a function. Yes, you heard it. In JavaScript, we can call and declare a function inside a function. Okay, so it is like a nested function. Okay, so here I'm going to say like function. So function starts with the function keyword, and here I'm going to say increment and age, right? Fine. So we have declared a function inside a function. Okay, now what I'm going to do is here I'm going to return this. Okay, return plus age. Okay, so I'm going to increment the value, and then again I'm going to return this. Okay, so now here we have this function, right? But if you see the color difference, you are able to see that means this function has not been called yet, right? So we have to call this function, right? So instead of calling that, we can return this directly. Okay, so I'm going to return this. Okay, now when I do this, here you can say it says that the symbols means that this is going to represent a function. Okay, because we are going to get this. I'm going to comment this as of now, so don't panic here. Okay, fine. So we got this. Okay, so here we have a get age where we are declaring age equal to 0, and here we are returning a nested function or inner function where I'm returning the age, and sorry, I'm incrementing the age, and then I'm returning the age here, right? Fine. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this getAge function here. Okay, and I'm going to store this. So whatever the value I'm getting from this function, I'm going to store this. Okay, so let maybe here I can say a equal to, okay, so here a. Okay, now again I'm going to log this. So a. Now if you see here, I say this denotes like function, right? So whatever values we are going to get, we are storing in this value. Now if I mouse over on this, you can see this is like returning a number, and if based on this symbol you can understand that okay, this is also a function, right? So to call that, I'm going to call this. Okay, now if you see here, when we are calling this age, okay, so this is going to be 1. First time it is 0, second time it is 1, right? Now I'm again going to log this. Okay, now this time you can see the value has been 2. Okay, now if I log this again, it is going to be again 3. Okay, that means we have solved the real-time problem, right? So age is going to keeps on growing, where we are also able to achieve the same concept in programmatically, right? Now this is the use of closure. Okay, now let's deep dive into this. Let's see how does this really works here. Okay, so here we should not call this age directly. Okay, let me show you why. Okay, so if I log this get age here, okay, now if you see, it says that function. Okay, we are not able to, even though we have this return function here, we are not able to print this statement here. Okay, the reason is very simple. If you see here, this age function is returning another function, which is inner function. Okay, so I can say this is like your outer function, and this is your inner function, right? Sorry for this typo. Okay, so this is your inner function, right? Now whenever function is calling, we have to call that function. Instead of calling the outer function, we have to call the inner function as well, right? So here what we have to do, we have to call again the function symbol. Okay, now if you see here, we are getting the value here, right? Now if you have an inner function, then this is how you have to call the outer function. Okay, let me comment this. Okay, now we are able to understand that get age, the value we have called here is this function. Okay, so this function is actually, if you see here, it's returning a number of a function. Okay, now we have stored that in this a variable. Okay, so this is what, if you mouse over here also, you can see that this is returning a number as well as a function, right? So when I print this, I'm able to get that. Okay, now let's see that whether we are able to manipulate the value of age. Okay, so if I call the age here, obviously it is not going to work because age is not defined, because age, the scope of the age is within this function, right? Now let's say that I'm able to minus of a. Okay, this is also not possible because if you see, a is a function, right? So you cannot do anything with this minus here, right? So that is also not possible. Now you might also ask that if I call the function and if I do the increment, that is also not possible, right? Technically not possible, because what you are going to do, the subtraction here, this is going to give you a like fail to instrument. That means in QK language it is error. We have the syntax error, right? This obviously we cannot subtract the function directly, right? So that is not possible at all. Okay, so I hope you understand the problem statement as well as the answer and how to solve that using Java Closure. Okay, to be simple and precise, calling a function inside a function is called closure, and this is called as lexical environment. So where we are able to increment the value of an outer function variable, but still it remains in the memory, right? So that is how it works. So that is what lexical environment all about. For those who still didn't get that, let me debug and show you. Okay, so I'm going to create a new JavaScript file here. So here I'm going to say, let's just name it as a.js as of now, even though that's not a good naming convention for understanding. I have just created quickly a file. Okay, now I'm going to paste that, and here I'm going to set a debug point each and everywhere. So here, and here, and in the return statement as well as here. Okay, so each and everywhere I have set this debug point. Okay, so I'm going to click on F5 here. So let me close this and let it be. Okay, I'm going to click on F5. Okay, fine. So now here we have this one. Okay, now in the watch statement I'm going to add this age value here. Okay, so age value, so you can understand when this age is going to be invoked and all. Okay, keep an eye on this segment as well as this segment. Okay, now first thing, so this get age is being called here. So first our debug point stops here, right? So I'm going to step into this. Okay, now here whenever we call this get age, obviously it is going to call the outer function get age, right? Now the age is 0 here. Okay, so if we see here, age becomes 0 in the watch, right? Now this is our inner function. Okay, now watch carefully. Actually that didn't run there, it skipped. Okay, now let me tell you, I will explain that. Okay, I'm going to click again step in. Okay, fine. Now here I'm going to log a function, right? Now if I click step into again, now if you see here, it is going inside this function, that is inside the increment age, that is inner function of get age here. Okay, if I going to click again step in, now you see here in the watch it says that age is 1, and even if you see here you can see that we have got something called closure where the value is 1 and the return value is 1 here. Okay, I'm going to click on step in again. Okay, now here age, if you see the age, it is not available because obviously we are out of the function, right? Now let me bring my terminal here so you can see the output. So here in the debug console we can see the output. Watch carefully here. Okay, so here I'm going to click on step in. Now we got the value as 1, right? Now again I'm going to call this a function here, right? So I'm going to click on this, and here if you see here, it doesn't call the get age, that is outer function is not being called this time. This time the inner function is getting called here. Okay, and it's in the return statement. Okay, so if you see in the watch here, we have this 1 which is our previous value, and in the closure also you can see this is 1, right? Now if I going to click on step in, then the value has been incremented as well as the local value has been incremented, and the closure age is also 2 now. Okay, now I'm going to again step in. So now this time it is going to print the value. So whatever this guy is going to return us, this is going to print, right? So here you can see it has been printed as 2. Okay, so let me rephrase it again. So when I'm going to step in, that means when I'm going to call the inner function, it won't call the outer function, rather it uses the outer function's variable, that is whatever the value it has. See here it has 2, right? When I do this age plus plus, now it will become 3. Okay, then it is going to return the value. Okay, now it is going to print the value. Okay, so here we got the value as 3, right? So that's it. So this is how you can debug and learn so many things. So this is a quick video on Closure. I think this is pretty much enough to understand. Okay, now it's very simple, guys. Declaring a function inside a function is called closure. Okay, now when we are going to try this values like this, where we are able to access the outer function variable within the inner function, and we are trying to manipulate this. So this value lies within the lexical environment. Okay, so in the first functions part one, that is in functions part one video, we have also seen like anonymous function, right? So at that point I do not have any examples to show you how this anonymous functions actually works. So I think this is a good time to show you that. Okay, so here we are returning a function which is known as increment age, right? But we are not calling it this anywhere. So instead of declaring it and giving it a name, we can make this as an anonymous here. Okay, so obviously anonymous means a function without any name, right? So I'm going to delete the function name here, and also we know that function keyword is not needed here. Okay, so I'm going to delete that as well, and again I'm going to use the arrow syntax here, right? Now if I try to run this, so let me go to my terminal and let me navigate here. So I'm going to cd within, probably I'm in the same folder, so I can run using the node, and then I can call a.js. Okay, now if you see here, we are able to get the same answer, that is here it is should be 1 and it should be 2 and it should be 3. Okay, so let's, okay, so fine. So this is how we can use the anonymous function, where instead of writing so many maybe instead of writing the function name and returning it, we can directly return an anonymous function. Okay, so this is what anonymous function is used for. Okay, now we have seen this as well, right? So when we call this getAge function directly, we saw that we are not able to get the output as expected, right? So if I go and uncomment this, and if I run this for 2 times, so we are expecting 1 and 2, right? But that is not the case here. So if I run this, you can see here we are getting again 1 and 1, right? The reason here is, let's debug and see again. Okay, so I'm going to set a debug point here, and preferably, so it's in comment, so no worry about that. So I'm going to again click on F5. Okay, now the problem here is it's calling getAge one time, so that's okay. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so okay, now here we in the getAge, right? So here I'm going to step in into this. Okay, so when I step in again, if you see here, we are again calling this, we are reinitializing the value of age as 0. So that is the problem. When we are calling this function, it is directly going to manipulate the inner values. Okay, so that is the problem. So if I go inside this, then and if I again call this, now it is calling the inner function. See here, when this point comes here, it is going to call the inner function. Now here it is going to return the age. So if as of now the age is 0, right? So it is going to increment. So it has been incremented. So even you can see this in Closure as well as the age watch here. So it has been incremented, right? So it has been incremented. Now it has also returned, and probably in the debug console we can see the output as well as 1, right? Now again pay attention here. So again I'm going to call the same function. Now when I call this again, if you see, it is going inside this and it is going to reinitialize. So obviously you know the answer, right? So it is going to again call this function where it is calling the age as 0. So when I step in, now this return statement should not work, because we know that is the inner function, right? So it is going to skip that part here. So as expected, it has been skipped. Now if I again click on step in, now if you see, the pointer stops here, right? So that means this part is now going to execute here. So if I click on this, now it is going to call my inner age function. Okay, so if I go and check the closure value, see the closure value has been 0, now it has been 1. The return statement is working fine, but the problem here is when we call this function directly, then it is going to reinitialize the value. So that is the one problem here. But whenever you have inner functions, or we can say closures, you should call like this. Okay, so this is the best way to call this. This is not the best way. Okay, and also the use of closure is like making a private variable which can be used for further references. So okay, by default, whenever you are going to declare anything inside the file level, I mean in the global level, the variable can be manipulated in each and everywhere, right? But when the scope has been restricted within the function, that is not going to manipulate it. That cannot be manipulated, right? Because the scope has been restricted within the function, right? So that is how. But we also saw that when we have a inner, I mean local variable, the variable it's not getting in the memory. That means it is going to reinitialize each and every time, right? To solve that problem, we have learned what is lexical environment and also what is closure. That's it, guys. I think this is pretty much enough. To be honest, for your learning purpose and also for interview, maybe this is going to helpful. But whenever you are going to work in a project, I don't think anyone is using. Personally, I'm working on my current project where we are using Protractor, where I never use this kind of stuff. Okay, I have used function and I have called nested function, but not this lexical environment or closer things. Okay, so possibly you can learn this, but you are not going to use it maybe. So I hope you have learned this and you have enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video soon. Tada, bye bye, take care.